all, thank you so much for having me here. And I think what you hear today is maybe a little bit different. I'm really happy that I didn't talk about maintenance and leadership because I thought that what Alana did was beautiful. I loved it and I could have got a lot out of it. I'm a coach, I'm a storyteller, I guess you can make money out of it. And this is how this comes across. And today I really want to talk about something I love talking, which is myself. But take that away, I really want to explore the role of maintenance and creativity and the role of maintenance and innovation. And again, I loved some of the thoughts that David had already about what is innovation and what is imitation. My professional journey can probably be summarized in a journey from telling new stories and being obsessed with making new stuff to slowly moving over to focusing on making better stuff and making stuff better, and now actually moving to how can we tell stories that help us make better stuff. So I would love to start at the beginning. And I would love to start to tell you a story, my story, because you need to understand, for somebody who has worked in the creative industries, who has worked in communication, digital disruption, innovation, building labs, admitting to a fascination to maintenance borders actually on the edge of a very guilty confession. People don't want to hear that. It is not something that you really can admit to. So I'm very happy I'm doing this here because nobody at the big ad agencies will let us see this because they're not interested in it. It's a safe space, exactly. I've just created a safe space. But my obsession started really, really early, and actually it started with stories. I love stories. Most kids love stories. And yes, I did love a good hero story. You know, in my time, I'm 51, heroes were mainly male. That was okay for me. And they saved kingdoms and castles, and they generally got a princess thrown into the deal. They had a lot of trials and tribulation, but suddenly there was the end. I was a very annoying kid, because what turned out to is, when this slide came up, or book came up, that is when I got really interested. Okay? And I kind of went, Dad, but how did they live happily ever after? What happened? What magic does it need to live happily ever after? You know, what is the prince going to do now with this castle? What happens when the stones crumble? So he killed this dragon, Dad. What happens if the brother of the dragon comes? Or what happens if there's no dragons anymore? Well, my parents are smart humans, and they thought, we're going to show her different stories. And they introduced me to the wonderful world of Astrid Lindgren. And I don't know if any of you know about her. I grew up on it. And the wonderful thing about Astrid was that she told stories about normality. And Pippi Longstocking, Emil, they were kind of crazy kids, wonderful kids, kids with an incredible, vivid imagination, but they lived in normal environments. So I really love that. I love the fact that it was about everyday adventures. I love the fact that it followed them through to their days and weeks, that they had normal breakfast, that they were sent early to bed when they did something that wasn't quite nice. So the way that I always talk about it, they're stories about people's ordinary existing and its daily upkeeping, paired with everyday adventures. Very different to traditional fairy tales. Fast forward about 20 odd years. I studied a long time, but then I'm German and we were allowed to do that for years. It was brilliant. Yeah. So 20 odd years ahead, you would have found me in a really shiny ad agency. It was in Frankfurt. But I wasn't in the really shiny department of the ad agency, because I was working in CRM, customer relationship marketing. Then we talked about direct marketing, all right? And my client was Lufthansa, an airline, and I was looking after their awards program, their loyalty program. Those were the late 90s. The teams across the road, they were working in the ad agency. They developed big, shiny films and print ads and told beautiful stories in order to get more people buying their products. And those campaigns launched loud and theatrical. And there were terrible stories about little scandals and amazing photo shoots. And here were we sitting, talking to clients on one-to-one, sending them little things when their trips didn't go as well as they could have. So they really saw themselves as heroes on that other side. Because most importantly, and it dawned on me halfway working there, is because they always had a beginning and an end. There was always an end where they could shine, when the campaign went live. And they were actually not really interested in what happened then. They just moved on to the next campaign. And they were moving on to the next quest of glory. So it was then that I very painfully realized that maintenance and what was called true creativity then were seen as sitting on opposite sides. In my case, quite literally divided by a road. Our side was obsessed by building long-term relationships with clients, customers. We nurtured them, we built them, we helped them step by step, and we helped the brands step by step in increments to grow their revenues. Yes, we had little launches, but there were more chapters in a book, there were not big taras. And in the end, it was really about ongoing support. And the other thing was, very often we were the net. We were the net that caught what these amazing creators forgot about. When those ad campaigns didn't quite promise what the product holds, that's when we came in, and we had to kind of clean that up in a lovely and very nice way. Fast forward another 10 years, and I was sitting in an even shinier office in London, and I was looking after a very large consumer good company, and I was leading the digital marketing for quite a lot of their brands. And what we did, yes, you can't judge me, we created microsites, and we created tons of them. Tons and tons and tons. I actually don't know how many anymore, and that's a good thing. We created them and then immediately forgot about them. We just did it. It was out, and for years I had this secret little hobby of checking in whether those microsites still existed. I loved it. I actually wanted to do an art project from it, and then I forgot about it. And sure enough, there they were, floating in the internet like satellite debris in space, long after the actual products were taken off the shelf and discontinued. So for years, you could find these amazing microsites of products that didn't exist anymore. And nobody cared. Absolutely nobody cared. Because the heroes and fixers were the ones who were leading us through this wonderfully wild and turbulent world. And what then happened was, suddenly there was a new role. And there were these really wonderful, smart people coming in as information architects. Because suddenly brands realized, we need an ecosystem. Ecosystem was the word, everything was an ecosystem. And they tried to align all of their digital estate. So those poor people were sitting there, Excel sheets over Excel sheets, trying to find all of those different microsites that were scattered around the world. And it was a really, really hard work, catalyzing, connecting, or just fighting this commissioning. And although this work was fundamentally important, those people never saw the limelight. No board wanted to talk to them. I remember when our head of information architecture tried to get a space on the board. And the board was at that time already starting to talk about Oculus Rift. Well, you can imagine who got the board space. Can you imagine 15 men sitting there? We can either talk about information architecture, or we can talk about Oculus Rift. It was very clear which conversation was being prioritized. So questions like, who will be looking at this website once it's launched? What is happening with the content? Who is actually moderating this weird thing that is called social media? All of that was naysaying, and I hear it a lot of times. It was like you're standing between us and innovation. And this one I'm really feeling very bad about, talking about limitation. So at that time, for some reason, my boss managed to sell into a brand that they should do a game. And it was the heydays of Farmville. And for some reason, somebody thought it was a great idea to develop a game for a fabric conditioner. Right? And they were completely convinced that that will get more people to buy fabric conditioners. That's a different story, but what was really interesting is that nobody of us actually realized what we were starting to do. We were all talking about creating something super shiny, something amazing. Nobody thought about releases. Nobody thought about maintenance. Now you can probably easily realize what happened. The game never really took off. We ran out of money. The client completely ran out of interest. And that was the lovely thing. The innovator, and I know this person still very well, managed to walk out, and they walked out before we went into delivery, and was seen as this amazing innovator. It never hit. You know, that person still is known for something like that, which I thought was wonderful. No envy here. In a world where the average tenure of a senior player in the industry is not more than 3 or 4 years, the pressure is high to make your mark in your organization. You can't possibly make your mark on somebody else's mark. That really isn't done. So you need to do a new mark, right? The last personal example that I want to talk about is actually the story of a BAU team, business as usual, maintenance team, as it was called in service agencies. And I was working with an agency at that time. We were working with a big global banking client, and the BAU team was wrangling every day